Greetings, everyone. Welcome to COS Today. Dale Parrish, your host, along with Mr. Ken Kashuba, our co-host. Hello, Ken.
Hi, Dale.
And boy, I tell you, just before we went on the air here tonight, we had a storm come up here where I'm located. It's still
that northern section there, getting some activity. Nothing down here. It's pretty quiet.
Yeah, I'm up in northern part of Indiana. Ken's in the southern or the center of the state, so we're a bit apart. Getting a little wind and rain. Oh well, okay. That's that time of year. What can I say? So I want to welcome everyone, and I want to just mention where our motto here at COS today is saving the country with Convention of States. That's what we're all about, saving the country with Convention of States. And I'll tell you, folks, this is becoming more and more evident to me. Do you see this, Ken? I mean, more and more I see where we really need a Convention of States. We really need we the people to get involved here.
Yeah, I don't think the founders ever, the founders were aware that it was possible. I don't think they ever imagined it would be coming, the need would be as prevalent as it is since the year 2000, basically.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe even sooner than that. But I think they prepared for the states to be able to do what we're doing. And at this point, let's say now that we're at 20 states, let's hope we're hitting that 34 pretty soon, so that we can actually put this in gear and start straightening out our government.
That's right. And obviously we're striving day in and day out to get to this first convention of states, and I think it should be, that's just the first of a number of them. There should be possibly an annual event or some. We need more than one. We need, but getting to that first one is what we're striving for right now. Well, before we get going here, let's let our friend Maringo Mike say a few words here to us.
The program? Please be sure and hit the like and subscribe buttons along with the notifications bell so you'll always know when we go live. We appreciate your support and hope you'll join us on our mission to use the Constitution to save the Constitution. Now, back to the program.
All right. Hit the like button, folks, and so that you can stay in tune with us. All right. Well, Ken, let's move right on into our first segment here. And this is the segment we call the In Focus segment. So we each get to talk a bit about what's on our mind right now. So let's bring on our panel this evening. There's Miss Debbie Stewart. Hello, Debbie.
Hi, Debbie.
There. Thanks for having me.
Debbie, a longtime supporter of Convention of States here. And Hunter Oswald. Hunter hasn't been with us for quite some time, but Hunter, do you still live in Ohio, Hunter? I didn't ask you about that.
Yeah, still here in Southern Ohio.
Southern
part of Ohio.
Yeah. All right. And we're bringing back Melba Kiser, a supporter here in Indiana. Melba was on some weeks ago, and we were having some audio problems with her, but she's coming on loud and clear tonight. So we're going to give her an opportunity to discuss again what she was talking about. So glad to have you all on this evening. Like I said, this is the In Focus segment. Just talk about what's caught your interest here lately. And in other words, what are you focusing on that's going on in the world? Not much going on, of course. I know it's hard to find something to talk about, don't you think? But anyway, Debbie, why don't you lead us off this evening?
Yeah, okay. So I just was interested in talking about, we have a new mayor of New York, and Mom Donnie. And he just sent out an emergency order banning New Yorkers from celebrating the 250th anniversary in Times Square. So they'd already announced they're going to actually drop the ball for the first time ever, not on New Year's Eve, and that they're going to have this big celebration. But now he's put out an emergency order that you can't actually go down there. You can watch it on TV. But if you're a protester, you can be there. But if it's a patriotic event or something celebrating something and you're a non-protester, or a non-agitator, you can't be there. But that was interesting. So you have to specify, why you're down there. So there were a lot of New Yorkers were kind of upset. I was just looking out on X and kind of checking that out. And so we have a different kind of a mayor in there. So we're kind of watching to see what's going on and how that's going to work out. Now, in all fairness, the FIFA World Cup is going on down there from mid-June to mid-July. So the premise there is that Mamdani said that he doesn't want to split up his police force too much. But I'm not so sure he has much of a police force left, because that's been one of the things he's talked about, is he wants to get rid of some of the police. So, I don't know the details of that, but so he's basically shutting down that part of New York during like the biggest year for just a regular year, versus even our 250th anniversary, which is a huge mile marker for us. That's amazing. 250 years under the same Constitution. Remember, we talked about a while back, the average Constitution life of a Constitution is only 17 years worldwide. So 250 years is amazing. But they don't want too many costs and don't want to have police issues. So stay home and watch it from TV.
I'm curious, Debbie, does that mean that you can have protesters from two different sides protesting? And if you are going to protest, do you have to have an identification?
You have to have a big red thing on your forehead that says protest or anti-protest.
Oh, I see.
Year AP. No, I'm kidding. That's a great question. But he did say that, if you're a protester, we would never block those people.
No.
Because they're key to who we are. But we'll just block the regular patrioted American citizens who've been here forever, who we want to celebrate the amazing holiday that we have coming up.
So I guess the follow-up question to that, Debbie, is as you've researched this a little bit, is there any pushback to this already, or that people just lying down?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm not even sure of the date of this, to be honest with you. Let me see if I can find a date on this. April 10th. So it would have been Friday, I think. Friday?
Yes.
Yeah, it would have been Friday. So I don't know. I haven't heard anything today. But I know that they had on X, they had about maybe 5 or 6 New Yorkers kind of weigh in on it. And they were all pretty not too happy. Let's put it that way, without using any expletives or anything. They were not happy about it. And one guy was like, get him out of there, right away. COS, we allowed two terms for mayor, right? 2 4-year terms. So even with term limits, they voted him in. And as I'm talking later on in the show about voter integrity, we're going to find out that factually there is a lot of voter fraud that does go on. But we do know that there's a huge Muslim movement there in New York City.
Yeah.
So, and they now have a Muslim mayor. So, that's, we voted him in, and now we're getting whatever it is he feels is appropriate.
I could almost see the reason from a police standpoint. Maybe I could almost maybe see some justification for this. But when you are going to allow protesters, that to me, and not others, but you allow protesters, that's not right.
Yeah. The other thing to know is that there is a small percentage of the population that will get tickets to go down there. It says just a small amount of people will get to be down there. So I don't know what that's going to look like. Who are those people, and why are they being treated like, to get to go? Yeah. I don't really know. But I wondered could Kathy Hochul as the governor, can she say anything? Can the legislature say anything? Because this is an emergency order. And we know that many times, even like during COVID, they overstep their boundaries with these emergency orders, like wearing masks and can't go to church and things like that. We're not constitutional. So I'll have to follow up with this like today and tomorrow to see where it's going.
That's interesting. You know, I've seen news reports off and on today, and I have not heard anything about this. This is the first time I've heard anything about this. So I'm sure it's going to be attracting more attention. I'm sure. All right, Debbie. Good. Well, Melba.
Yes.
We're gonna let ladies go first here across the board. So Melba, why don't you? What's on your mind?
Well, what's been on my mind for actually a very long time, and that is immigration. As you're aware, I was born from Cuba, so I immigrated to the United States many decades ago. So I'm currently serving as part of a committee that was formed by one of the sheriffs here in Indiana, an immigration commission, to basically make sure that the sheriff's department is working closely with ICE on doing things lawfully and ethically as far as how they handle illegal immigrants, especially when they turn them over to ICE. So that's something that I've been very interested in for years. And it's of special interest to me because I agree with what Debbie said. There is a lot of fraud going on. I feel very strongly that only American citizens should be allowed to vote. And so I've also been following the Save America Act. It's ridiculous to me that we should even have to be discussing this, or that there should be any kind of issue with whether we should have only citizens voting and only count them every 10 years to set congressional districts. And so I think that's why also I am such a supporter of COS, is because every day I just see things that Congress is doing that is really not doing what we the people want. And so I'm looking forward to the day that we get to the 34 states so that we can have a convention, and hope that we have a lot of them, because I think we have a lot of things to work on if we really want to have the control put back with the people rather than the folks that we're sending to Congress.
I very much agree with you, Melba. I think every day we see more and more evidence of why we need a convention of states. I really do see that. Yeah.
Now, obviously, the other thing that I'm following, since I am Cuban, is I'm very concerned about what's going on in Cuba. I'm kind of waiting to see where Trump goes with this. He keeps talking about possibly doing the same kind of thing that he did in Argentina, but it's a very difficult situation for the people now. Whether it be the folks in Iran or the folks in Argentina or the folks in Cuba, the people are not being supported and represented by their government. And the governments have been corrupt for many, many decades. And they really, all of those people in those countries really need a new government that will really represent them. So we need to get those folks out.
Melba, does Cuba have a constitution?
No, it did, but no.
No?
No, the dictatorship does not have a constitution. Yeah.
Did it have a constitution at one time?
It did at one time, yes.
Really?
That was before Castro, yes.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Are there factions in Cuba that are trying to get a foothold in the government, or trying to reach out to the U.S. to help them get control of the country?
There have been several factions throughout the years. However, they're in a similar situation as the governments of other countries where you have dictatorships and you have tyrants running, and that is that they are not armed or not very well armed at all. There is a lot of spying going on, and you never know who you can trust. And any kind of uprising that tries to start is very quickly quenched.
Is
And
it?
that means executions, it means jailing, it can,
Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. I know Trump gets asked the question once in a while, what's going on in Cuba?
Yeah.
And, I think there's probably a lot going on there, and we're just not hearing about it very much. But hopefully we'll hear more. Now, Melba, the last time you were on, I think you talked about ICE, and you had a specific interest in what's going on with ICE. Am I correct? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I decided to serve in that commission, because in the particular sheriff's division that I was asked to be a part of, they wanted representation from people of different backgrounds, and so being a legal immigrant and a naturalized citizen and Spanish speaking, I was asked to be a part of that commission, and so. I wanted to know how these sheriff's officers were going to be trained, and I wanted to be a part of knowing how the people, why they were picked up, how they were being held and questioned, and how they were handed over to ICE, and also how that would affect their families in case they had young families here in the States. So that's, and I'm hoping that there's a lot of different commissions throughout the United States, and so that the everyday person is aware of how their government, those that are, of course, participating with ICE, how they're handling the situation. And I think it's very helpful to know that, they're not, you don't have people, you don't have sheriffs just going around and arresting everyone like you see in the mainstream media. You don't see people just being willy-nilly shoved or pushed or shot. They're following the law, they're following the Constitution, and they are being, the majority, of course, are being ethical and moral in the manner that they're handling folks. They're being respectful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. You don't hear much about that in the news anymore, do you? I guess the Minneapolis situation. It was big news stories at that time, but that's kind of died away. And am I right, or am I missing it?
No, you are right, but I think that's just part of how the media tends to operate. They have moved on now to the fraud in California. And in fact, I was just reading something about in California, they're now proposing a law to basically shut down and imprison and fine folks that are actually doing journalism. So, and I believe they're calling it the Nick Shirley Act, which is even more ridiculous.
Oh, really? Oh, really?
Yeah. So, no, I think that's just part of how the mainstream media works, is they just move on to the next big headline.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. You're right. You're right. Okay. Well, thanks, Melba.
Yeah.
Hunter? What's
Well,
up with you, guy? What are you looking? What's got your attention here?
Well, first off, Dale, thanks for having me on. It's been a while since we've last talked.
Yeah.
So what's actually caught my mind isn't actually in the United States right now. It's actually abroad currently. So for the folks who are watching it, and some might be aware, some might not be aware, but there's actually two big elections going on right now. Last night, Hungary just had their parliamentary election, and it's a big deal because Viktor Orban, who's been in power since 2010, his party and himself have been ousted in a landslide election. And a lot of people are asking questions on what this means. So, for some context, as I said, Viktor Orban's been in there for about 16 years now as the leading prime minister. And a lot of people have always been skeptical about him because of how he's handled certain things in terms of the Hungarian economy, his kind of closeness to Vladimir Putin. So there was a lot of questions on, because he is what they call a Eurosceptic, meaning very anti, not necessarily pro, interacting with the EU and some of the immigration policies that they've promoted, which have been very disastrous overall. And the new prime minister to be, Peter Magyar, his faction won 136 seats now. In Hungary, it's like their total is like 199 seats in parliament. So this new party has swept Orban and all of them. Now, a lot of people asking, what does this mean? Well, this new party that is to be, it just started this year, is kind of a collection of what, anti-Orban, but a lot of conservative, right-leaning populists, a bunch of people who were concerned about the trajectory of Hungary. So a lot of people have looked into this, what's going to mean for Europe with how the United States handles the war in Ukraine, since now it appears the new person in charge is more likely to be with Europe in terms of funding more, wanting to fight on behalf of Ukraine more willingly, and definitely taking a potential closeness with Vladimir Putin in the country, who Putin has kind of made clear at times Hungary was kind of a potential mediator in some of the negotiations going on. So there's been a lot of discussion of how U.S. foreign policy on that front. But as I said, there's another election going on right now that we might not be aware of, which is actually going on in Peru. Now, for this one, it's interesting because last time in 2021, Peru had their presidential election, and the Marxist candidate won by very thin margins. So it was like they only got like 50.6% of the vote, and the opposition at the time, who very strongly anti-Marxist, got like 49.6. So it was very, very tight election. Well, this time right now, so the election's still ongoing, but right now the two leading candidates for their president are anti-communist. So this is kind of seen as a major shift overall in Latin America, where you're seeing a lot of countries in Latin America where the elections have strongly favored, libertarian, free market, right of center candidates. Now, probably a lot of people I've heard are saying, why does this matter for a lot of people in the media? Well, right now, as you're also maybe aware, we're a few months away from our own midterm elections. So there's a lot of questions going on, and where a lot of countries are going with leadership positions, who's going to be in charge of what policies, how are those policies going to affect their countries. But as right now, as I said, some of the elections we're seeing right now, the question is, can these elections also stem in America too? Debbie kind of talked about with the rise of Mondani this past year, that's kind of where the United States kind of seeing the exact opposite, where you're seeing a lot of progressive, even openly socialist Marxists winning these elections. Now, as the United States being the leader of the free world, that's got people questioning, like, okay, a lot of countries around the world are going further to the right, embracing free markets, supporting stronger militaries, kind of confronting totalitarian, authoritarian regimes, where back home, we're kind of facing a very unique question in the reverse. So obviously there's a lot of upheaval within the Republican Party, a lot of upheaval in the Democrat Party. And so with all these international elections going on, and also the timing of our own elections, what does that mean for us? And I can speak on behalf from a Gen Z basis that it's a lot, to say the least. It is, you're seeing a lot of folks debate on, okay, what should the directory of the economy be? And, a lot of people want to talk about how the economy is doing well, and which is, it's true when compared to the last 4 years. But it's not necessarily the best, which Democrats like Mandani are really focusing their campaign strategies on. And I think a lot of folks, whether you're Hakeem Jeffries or Chuck Schumer right now, trying to figure out how to reclaim the House and Senate, are really focusing on how can they kind of mobilize this new progressive, strong, wing of their party that is really emboldened, which obviously there's internal debates on that and how it's going to affect 2028, but also within the Republican Party, where you're seeing a lot of young Gen Z conservatives kind of figuring out, okay, do we still keep the same people in charge, or do we change new leadership? A lot of debate right now about John Thune with how he's handled the SAVE Act, how he's handled with the Dignity Act as well. And so there's a lot of debate right now in our own election year of who's going to be in charge, not just in 2026, but also in 2028. So that's what's got me kind of focused in right now.
This whole topic of the midterms, I know Debbie brought this up on our last broadcast, her concern. Did you talk about it then? Or maybe it was in a meeting. I'm sorry. Maybe it was in a meeting that we had. Debbie Stewart brought this up about the midterms, and we've been talking about maybe doing some sort of a presentation on the midterms. Do you think the administration's in trouble right now leading into the midterms, Hunter?
I think if you're looking at the midterms objectively, a lot of people want to enter their own biases, but if we're looking at it objectively, I would say right now it currently favors the Democrat Party. And a lot of people are saying, one of the excuses I've heard a lot is obviously the redistricting that's been going on, whether it's in Texas or California, a lot of how many seats can both parties kind of manipulate within their own state to favor their own party. And there's truth to that, obviously, but I would say the biggest thing is messaging and results. And I think the problem right now is Republicans are facing a very big gap between what they're saying and what they're delivering. And Democrats are using that the entire time. And why is that? Because like Mandani, everybody's like, well, he's a Democrat socialist. He's like, and here's my policies. Here's what I'm going to deliver. And so far, he's been pretty consistent despite how disastrous those policies may have been. He's kind of doing what Trump's kind of doing, where it's like, I'm actually trying to deliver my promises and your party isn't. So who's really doing what they're supposed to be doing? And there's a lot of debate right now of whether Republicans should oust John Thune, because a lot of the big, policy proposals that have been, more than 80% of Americans agree on are not being pushed by Republicans, which is kind of surprised given the fact that Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. So you would think right now, all those issues that Republicans are running on, right away, boom, 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 delivering all that. But that's not been the reality. So what have Democrats been doing? They've been building on that. And what are they focusing on? They're focusing on affordability. That's the big thing Democrats are really, really focusing on. So if you're looking at like the Senate races, Democrats have an easy chance of flipping Senate seats like in North Carolina with Roy Cooper, who's a very popular governor and attorney general from that state. Alaska with the ranked choice of Mary Patel or Patella. I sometimes get her last name mixed up, but she's progressive, but she is as a campaign person very good at espousing the right messages to Alaskans, which got her the House Senate seat. Or not Senate seat, the House seat in the past couple elections. Maine, Graham Palantir, who's gotten a lot of controversy, but really kind of bolstered by the AOC Bernie Sanders leading the party, is doing phenomenally well. They're saying he's got a chance to go over 60% of the vote in the Senate race. Republicans, even in Ohio, or even here in Ohio, Sherrod Brown's seen a major comeback in polling wise. So, yeah, so this idea that Republicans can lose both the House and Senate is very likely, and possibly more if you're looking at governor's races and other seats that seemed very safe for Republicans.
Yeah, because I was sharing with Dale, I think this is what you might be referring to, that in Texas, the most conservative district / county in Texas, and one of the most conservative in the country, flipped Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
And so the point was, if that's any indication of unkept promises, expectations, then, and we had this discussion about there's a small group of swing voters, but the Republicans are not going to the polls, because they're frustrated, and they may not be voting. And so that brings our count down. So I was just concerned about that, kind of like what you're saying.
Yeah. And I mean, a big thing about it is 2026, a lot of these people are looking at okay, what's it going to be in the House Senate? This is going to determine also who are the people running in 2028. Why? Because, for example, the Senate seat in Georgia, John Ossoff has been considered a potential presidential and VP candidate for the Democrats.
Wow.
Now, a lot of people are asking why him. Well, he's kind of certainly played the more moderate route. And I think the fact kind of like a Georgia comeback, Democrats can win in traditionally red states. And if you're somebody like Andy Beshear of Kentucky, or John Fetterman, or even Josh Shapiro, these are the kind of candidates that are going to really do well if they're nominated in 2028. So it doesn't matter if you have Vance Rubio. These are the candidates that if I'm a Republican, I'm wanting to watch out for. Not the AOC wing, not the Newsom, not the Kamala Harris. The more, as I said, the more kind of centrist, moderate Democrat is going to be the one more likely to prevail in 2028. So 2026 is a big year for Democrats to see who's going to lead in 2028. And if they lead in 2028, what does that mean for the trajectory of both the Republican and Democrat Party?
Hunter, from a Gen Z perspective, talking about people like Shapiro and Fetterman, people that Democrats that seem a bit, obviously talk a lot more moderate, and it seemed to have a little more common sense. Do you think from a Gen Z perspective that that the extreme left that has basically controlled the situation now for some time will continue, or do you think that these moderate Democrats will finally break through? Do you have any feel for that at all?
Yeah. So right now, it's kind of up in the air still, because as we've seen with the rise of Mamdani and a few other places, the AOC Bernie Sanders wings of the party is doing it very, very well. If anything happens, their wing of the party is going to grow significantly in 2026. That's why even if the Democrat Party in 2026 goes more far left and still wins, I think a moderate Democrat will still prevail in 2028. And the reason is it comes down to coalition building. What's going to be the people that actually give you the seats in power? And if a moderate, if a moderate has to be president, so be it. Because at the end of the day, if you're in the same party and you're all lock and step like the Democrats, it doesn't matter what you is. The question is, can you get elected? And then once elected, can you enforce your agenda? Where I think on the Republican end, it's kind of like, okay, we're still trying to figure out what happens post-Trump because of how Trump has had significant weight on the party. So there's a lot more, not so much lock and step going on. Where Democrats, it seems pretty consistent. It's just a matter of who leads in that capacity.
But I can't tell anymore. What's the difference between a far left Democrat and a moderate Democrat?
Yeah, no, it seems like today you really can't tell.
Does a moderate Democrat still support illegal aliens? Do they still support sanctuary cities? Does a moderate Democrat still support open borders? On and on and on. I can't tell the difference. So
as far as I can see, Dale, there's only a couple, and for me, the biggest surprise was John Fetterman. coming, when he was elected, people were thinking, wow, the guy can't
Yeah.
speak. He shows up in sweats. I mean, this guy can't last. And he's turned out to be really the most common sense and a guy that at least weighs the issues and looks at what's best for the American people. I see him as the only Democrat that thinks that way, honestly.
I would tend to agree with you, Ken, because as I'm sitting here listening, I disagree. Well, I don't disagree. I see things a little bit differently, I think, than Hunter. I do not see moderate Democrats running. What I see are Democrats who are pretending to be moderate in their stance while they're campaigning so that they can get the votes to put them in power. But I think that we have seen, whether in New York or in Virginia, that once they are elected, then they start putting their radical policies in place. I agree about Fetterman, but I also agree with you, Ken, that I can only think of a couple of Democrats that I would call truly moderate.
I guess my question when I asked Hunter about the Gen Z perspective was, I guess I was curious, and I appreciate your answer, Hunter. I think what I was looking for was basically, does the generation of Gen Z see through the facade? Do they recognize people like AOC and that group that basically leads it? Do they recognize the danger of letting them control the party? And is there enough Gen Z support along with others to basically push forth at least some better leaning Democrats, if you can find more than a couple, into office? I guess that was the overall feeling. I think, when you look at us older folk, I think, we've been around the block enough times, we've voted in enough elections, and we've seen this happening for so long, that we kind of just stay away from it altogether, as far as voting, seeing what they're up to. So I guess that was kind of what I was looking for. And I know what you're saying there as far as, how it will, can play out or will play out. But that's kind of just basically looking for the younger viewpoint on that. So,
yeah, I would say when it comes to the younger viewpoint, I think the big thing people have to realize is Gen Z is very much a anti-establishment, very skeptical generation when it comes to anything establishment, be Republican or Democrat. So I would say if you're looking at this, a lot of Gen Z still would favor Democrats, your AOC, Bernie Sanders wing, because they are very good at playing the anti-establishment. They're bigger government control, but you know what? They're delivering on, from their view, the type of policies that are attempting to, quote, fix the underlying the issues. Again, affordability, the economic situation, how AI and all that kind of stuff is affecting the economy. As I said, affordability. So yeah, there's a lot of it. So I would say at the same time, though, it's kind of also backfiring on Democrats, because the more you're kind of seeing with some of the ongoing races like your Eric Swalwells or your candidates who've played a very strong progressive campaign, and then realizing, well, hold on a second, you said this for how long, and now here's all the lies coming out about you. It's for Democrats, they still have to play very strategic with Gen Z, even though they might appear to vote more likely Democrat. But especially those on the conservative end, I think there is still potential with conservatives, Gen Z conservatives, on how we can engage politics as well as outside of the political sphere, from the culture standpoint, kind of like your Charlie Kirks, who sought to go beyond, the halls of Congress and into places like churches, communities, and represent that, politics is one atmosphere, but there's so many more ways to create such good and provide more opportunities for these people and make a better community and society overall.
Gotcha. Well, I'll remind you too that as a boomer, we were very anti-establishment too back in the '60s.
Yeah.
But it was really more about the Vietnam War, and not so much what you guys are facing today as a younger generation. I mean, I feel sorry for the younger people today who can't afford to buy their homes and other types of things. The issues are a lot deeper than what we were protesting back in the day. So,
Yeah.
And as time goes by, I think a lot of us became a little bit more conservative if we started out on that protesting side. Some of them even went to the lengths of fleeing to Canada because they didn't want to be drafted. But that's another whole story. I'm just curious, from a generational thing, how that looks. So I appreciate your bringing that to light.
Okay, we got to move on here. We're just about out of time in this segment. So, Ken, I want to give you an opportunity to mention what's on your mind.
Well, I was going to talk about Eric Swalwell, but I think everybody understands that. And if it really if he really does follow through with what he's promised to do by resigning from Congress and not running for governor, that's all good and well. They can move on to the next low life that wants to fill in for him, I guess. But so I don't want to spend a lot of time on Eric because I don't think he deserves it, actually. There were a couple other things, and one of them just popped into my head while we were talking to Hunter. But I wanted to bring up just briefly the fact that again we look at what Trump is doing, and we've all heard the chess maneuvering that he does. I found it interesting that we are now. I think it was a decade ago, we were putting out about 9 million barrels of oil a day, and we are now over 13 million. And we are producing oil to the point that we are inviting other countries to get their oil from us rather than through the Middle East there. And this is producing a very interesting pickle. I'll call it a pickle for Russia and China, people like that. The way that this is working is as OPEC tries to push prices up to regulate pricing, and America supplies more. What happens is basically they get caught in a loop. The more that they push prices up and people buy and oil is purchased from the United States, it pushes prices back down, and so and they become stuck in this loop. So they really can't. It really plays against them trying to use the oil game there to regulate prices. So I see Trump as looking again chess and looking further ahead to basically take some of that leverage away from the Middle East and oil producing countries with what we're doing to produce oil. But so that's the one topic that I was kind of had in my focus over the last couple of days. But in talking to Hunter here just a second ago and bringing up the old anti-establishment and talking about those that left for Canada because they didn't want to go to Vietnam, I find it interesting that we're talking about drafting. As of December, Trump is going to initiate a mandatory draft. What's everybody think about?
Is he really planning on initiating something like that? Really?
Yep.
The draft
his administration. Yep.
Yep. The draft in December. Every person, every male. Well, I certainly don't think it's female, but I think every male has to enlist. The draft will be started again in December. That's what I understand. Yeah.
Yep. Anyone between the age of 18 and 25.
Can he do that on his own, or does Congress have to agree with that?
Good question, Melba. Good question. I'm not sure about that. I was just reading about the fact that he was going to get it started in December. So I don't know whether that's something Congress has to vote or the president can just order that. I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, I'm actually not understanding that, because if in fact we have the highest enrollment, right, since Pete Hegseth came in all of our military branches. And as he's talking about why do we have soldiers in all of these different countries that are not supporting us in this
Yeah.
oil. And he's talking about bringing back soldiers from whether it be France or Spain or wherever they are. Why would we be needing to put in the draft?
Yeah.
You know, one question could be, it's another one of those things he puts out there to kind of broadcast something to get Iran and China and Russia's attention. I don't know. It could be that, but when I read that, it seemed like it was something that was definitely going to happen. And I don't know the constitutionality of it.
I missed this.
I think it's.
Go ahead.
I would say it definitely speaks to the fact with the ongoing news about the negotiations, both with Russia and Iran, as a lot of them have said that the negotiations have essentially failed. And so it brings the question of what is a U.S. foreign policy going to engage in if we're having drafts where anyone between the age of 18 to 25 must enroll. You know, how well are these conflicts going for either side? And if you're an American, you're probably looking at this like the wars are actually going way worse against us than it is for us. So there's a lot of questions I would say around that, is both the negotiations as well as the conduct of these operations.
I'm pretty sure Congress is the only one that can declare war. And I'm pretty sure that the president cannot independently issue the draft. He has got to get the approval of Congress, because it says they grant the authority to raise and support armies as Congress's job.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think so. Yeah. I don't think that would be a great midterm issue to run on. I don't think it would be very popular. All right, guys, we're out of time for this segment. And I want to thank everyone for participating. Once again, great segment. I always enjoy these In Focus segments. So Debbie, Hunter, Melba, thank you very much for participating tonight. And Debbie, don't you go away. We're going to bring you back a little later, okay?
Okay.
All righty. Thank you.
Thanks for so much.
Very good, Ken. Very good. Listen, I'm going to change our schedule up a little bit here. We'll go ahead and do the soapbox with John Ackerman, but then I'm going to bring Ken Whaley on next, okay? So
Sure.
With Lessons from Rome. So Ken, if you're waiting in, Ken said he was not feeling very well tonight. I don't believe him. You know, he said he's always kind of sick. You know, he says, but I guess we'll have to take his word for it tonight. But oh yeah, see, he's I can see him coughing in the lobby there now. So anyway, we'll bring him on.
He's very thankful that you left cough drops in the green room for him. So yeah.
Cough drops instead of donuts, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, John Ackerman has got on his soapbox again this week. He seems to be getting on it weekly, and but I think he's done a really good one here. Well, they're all very good, I should say, but I think this is a very interesting one. So let's bring John on and let's listen to his soapbox for this week.
John Ackerman for Convention of States. I listen to a few podcasts, and one of them is Verdict by Senator Ted Cruz. And recently, he reported on asking ChatGPT the following question: how could you destroy a country without war? And ChatGPT gave about 8 answers, and I'm going to share just about 4 or 5 of them because I think they are very relevant to the work of Convention of States. One way to destroy a country without war is information and influence campaigns, like spreading misinformation or propaganda, or amplifying internal divisions, political, racial, cultural divisions, and undermining trust in institutions, election, the media, the courts. Another way to destroy a country without war is cyber attacks, disrupting the infrastructure, power grids, pipelines, hospitals, stealing sensitive data or intellectual property, Another way to destroy a country without war is political destabilization, supporting corruption, supporting weak leadership, backing internal factions or unrest, undermining the rule of law. And another way is supply chain disruption, blocking access to key resources, energy, food, rare materials, etc. And the final one that I'll talk about is cultural and or social fragmentation, encouraging polarization and identity conflicts, and eroding shared values or national unity. ChatGPT closes that conversation by giving the big picture, and I quote, "Most modern strategists would say that the most powerful way to destroy a country without war is internal breakdown. When trust, stability, and cooperation collapse from within, often helped along by external pressure." Close quote. The time has come for us to be united. And one thing we can all be united on, Democrats and Republicans who are clear thinking agree on this, is the need to rein in federal overreach, control federal spending, and apply term limits to federal officials. The three things that Convention of States stand for.
Another good one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
another good one from John. And I thought this would be a very good lead-in to our next presentation from Ken Whaley on lessons from Rome. Let's bring Ken on and ask him that. Hello, Ken.
How are you this evening, gentlemen?
Very good, very good. Well, Ken, did you think that soapbox segment from John Ackerman kind of a good lead-in to what you're talking about, right?
Absolutely set the stage. And I will do a little bit of a recap. And I was thinking that so applies to what I'm going to go over here this evening. Absolutely. So, and I apologize. I know you teased me about the cough, but it's there. And, you know, this has been a brutal one. It really has. But I'm going to power through it.
You hang in there and get this done, and then you can go. Yeah.
Okay. And, you know, I wanted to comment real quick. That was an exceptional, I thought, in focus segment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well spoken. I was sitting here almost yelling at my screen, watching that from the green room, as it were, thinking, that I was almost sad I didn't get involved. But you know me, I'd have gotten all carried away. So
is that because I didn't talk very much during that? Does that got something to do with it, or?
No, actually, it was just good guests that were well spoken. I thought focused on their topics and had something really powerful to say across the board. I thought it was great.
Good. I'm glad. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So, okay. Well, folks, Ken, Ken has been doing this series on lessons from Rome, about the fall of Rome and some of the things that seem to apply to what's happening in this country at this time. And so I've asked Ken to come on and make this a series. And this is number 4, I believe, isn't it?
That is correct.
And I hope he'll agree to go beyond number 4 here, because I'm sure there's more than just 4. But so Ken, take it away. Lessons from Rome.
Fair enough. And I will say real quick, number 5 is pretty much in the bag at this point. So I had planned on that. We'll see where it goes. But
Good deal.
Just so you're aware. So
you can do that next week, right?
No, I thought that was next month, but that's okay.
I'm just kidding.
All good. You do like to pull that chain, don't you, Dale? All good. Apologies. Well, as you know, last time, and then you kind of led off with this a little bit, there were some things that Rome handled really well in the course of their the history, I guess you would call it, at least initially. And last time I spoke, that was specifically about emergencies. And they built a system that allowed for temporary concentrated power when it was needed, and then required that power to be given back. Perhaps maybe you two remember the Office of the Dictator. We all had a good chuckle about that last time, just with the term itself. And for a time, that really worked well. But then Rome seemed to keep having emergencies, or at least they kept declaring those emergencies. And of course, when I say that, I think back to COVID, other such things along those lines. We've all experienced those here in this country in the fairly recent past. And over time, those temporary emergency measures started to feel normal to the average citizen. I mean, I hate to say that COVID felt normal to us here in this country, but after 3 to 4 years of it, it was kind of like nobody paid much attention anymore, again, feeling average. So if we step back a little bit and look at the bigger picture, to me, something important comes into focus with that. And that's that Rome didn't collapse in a single moment. Okay, it followed a pattern. So as I mentioned at the outset, I wanted to do a real quick recap of the three previous shows. Sorry, things are not working here. First, people stopped remembering why limits existed. Okay. And I won't delve too deep into these, and then they slowly disengaged from the responsibility of maintaining those limits. And then emergency powers began to expand and stick around longer than they were ever meant to be. Again, going back to the start of this about Rome and their emergencies. And what I found interesting as I researched on this was that by the time Rome got to that stage, nothing really looked or felt broken at all. But something had shifted, maybe was the best way I could put that. So today I wanted to focus on what happens next, and not to the people and not even to the power structure directly, but to the institutions themselves within Rome, and then of course in parallel within our country. Because it seems those institutions in a republic aren't just administrative tools. They serve a very specific purpose. They're actually meant to restrain power. Basically not to accelerate it, not to simplify it, and certainly not to make it more efficient, as we know it's not very efficient in our government, but to slow it down, to divide it, and to keep it within the limits that were originally established by our founders. At least that's what I believe was the original idea. A couple of quick examples that I touched on, or I will touch on. Courts are meant to apply laws within the boundaries that are set for us by the Constitution, and then legislatures are meant to deliberate and even define those boundaries. That applies both to federal and state levels. But systems are designed, I believe intentionally, to prevent quick and unchecked action. It was funny because I immediately came to mind when one of the earlier guests mentioned about the draft, or I guess Ken had done that, about the draft in December. I hadn't heard that, and that caught me off guard. But that kind of, yeah, where'd that come from? But quick and unchecked action, which to me, Trump has done a lot of, in all fairness. His executive orders have been many and very powerful in many ways. But that really so kind of going back, to prevent that quick and unchecked action can feel very inefficient. But to me, that inefficiency is actually our protection, even when it's frustrating. And I know a lot of my friends are very frustrated the way things are going in the government these days. But to me, here's where the shift begins. Again, doesn't happen with a law being repealed, and it certainly doesn't happen with any dramatic announcements. It actually happens very quietly and very slowly. As I see it, expectations begin to change. So instead of asking as citizens, are we following the rules? We as citizens begin asking, are we getting the results we want? And if you stop for a second and think about that, two very, very different things. And while it sounds reasonable, are we getting what we want? And in fact, it often feels responsible, especially when we feel that there's an inefficiency in our system. But that desire for results often introduces the very subtle change that I was talking about. Because once results become the priority, rules start to feel flexible. And I've touched on that in a previous show, that, well, if we slip this rule a little bit, then, it'll allow things to get by. And it was interesting because I was writing this morning for Restore First Principles, and I have guidelines set for what I will or won't allow myself to write. And in this one case, I went, I'm going to let it slip this time because it'll allow this point to be felt and be experienced by the readers of the blog. And I realized that went right back to what I was speaking of, to that very point there. But of course, when we feel that happening, the institutions begin to behave differently. Personally, I feel that's because they're responding to these new results-oriented expectations. And again, that goes back to what I was doing to myself even this morning in my own little world here. Apologies. So Rome gives us a very clear picture of this. The offices were still there. The laws were still referenced. The procedures were still being followed, at least outwardly. The people of Rome could see or feel that procedures were still being followed. But the decisions within the systems began to shift, and not always based on consistent principles, but increasingly shaped by circumstances, the pressure from the citizens, and the expected and even desired outcomes, or the expected desired outcomes. So from the outside, the system still existed, but it was no longer doing the same thing. And when I was working this up, I realized this is the part that's really easy to miss for the average citizen. For those of us like on the show here that pay a lot more attention to this, it's, to me, pretty obvious. But for a lot of people that I know, even within my family, it's really easy to miss this because honestly, they don't pay attention. Because again, nothing appears broken. In fact, many things appear improved. Decisions are made faster. Problems seem to be addressed more directly. Leadership feels more decisive. That inefficiency we've been feeling seems to have disappeared. But what's quietly been fading is restraint. So the system is no longer, and we as people are no longer restraining the system based on the expectations that we have now. And I say that because once restraint gives way to results, institutions, our system, have changed their role. They've moved basically from being neutral referees, which is what they should be, example, the courts, to active participants in outcomes. And we see that quite regularly, especially at federal level, with judges and putting blocks on Trump's executive orders and other things that he's trying to do. But over time, something else begins to happen. The institutions start to protect themselves. Now, not always out of bad intent, not even out of corruption, at least not in the way we usually think of corruption. I see it as them prioritizing stability and continuity. We'll call it their own preservation or self-preservation. Better way to put that. And when that happens, their purpose has already shifted. Because institutions were never meant, excuse me, in my book anyway, to preserve themselves. They were meant to preserve defined limits that were set for them, especially in the courts with the Constitution. Now, if we bring that all back to a modern perspective, you can start to see why public confidence feels unsettled over the last few decades, even uncertain for many of us that are truly paying attention. I don't feel that's because everything is failing all at once, but because decisions have begun to feel inconsistent. Rules seem to apply. We touched on this early on in the series. Rules seem to apply one way in one situation and differently in another. As I said, we got to think back to discussions about a two-tiered justice system. I want to say that was in episode 1.
It was.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. My memory is better than I thought it was going to be today.
Oh, I've got these memorized. I'll keep you straight on them. Okay.
Well, I appreciate that. Sometimes that's going to be what it takes. I'll get a little off track. My apologies. Anyway, when that perception starts to take hold, trust erodes or is even already eroded. I'll even state that erosion is very subtle. Again, very quiet behind the scenes things, just like everything else we've talked about in this series. But again, it's the underlying feeling that things are shifted, that there's an erosion in the trust of the system. And kind of like a flood taking out the foundation of a house, eventually the house is going to go down. So I believe that there's the reality Rome leaves us with at this point, or that here's the reality. Institutions don't disappear. They don't collapse in some dramatic fashion. They continue to operate as they are now. They continue to function. They even continue to look familiar. But they're no longer doing what they were designed to do. They've become something unplanned and I could even say unexpected. Again, with the two-tier justice system is the most prevalent way to see that going on. So if institutions are no longer consistently restraining or using power, and we as citizens are no longer actively engaged in holding them to their originally designated roles, what really ensures that the law still applies equally to everyone? Because we can all see, if we're paying attention, that right now they don't. And that lack of equity is what we'll look at next time in lesson 5 with Lessons of Rome. So thanks for letting me share with this stuff today.
Okay, now, yeah, I want to make sure I understand this number 4, right? People are beginning, institutions have begun to be result oriented rather than doing what they were intended to do.
Correct.
And the people are not concerned about that, or they're accepting of that. Am I right? Or
yes. No, you're actually spot on. I think as much as anything, it's that so much of the citizenry of this country has become disengaged. We talked about that, and again, one of the earlier episodes, each one of these kind of builds on the last,
right,
or the last several.
That was number 2, believe me. That was number 2.
Okay, then you're remembering better than I am, and I wrote the things. But bottom line is the when people disengage, they just say, well, somebody else will do it. Somebody else will take care of it. My vote doesn't matter. That's one I hear all the time. That there's less pushback as these systems and institutions tend to get off track and think more about keeping themselves in power than following the original guidelines and constitutional lane, shall we say, that they were originally designed to work within. Again, the easiest one to look at is the court system in this country, and how far off track it's gotten in the last, say, 2 decades, more so than the last, say, 5 years than anything. But
okay, all right. Yeah, that's probably the area where you would find most examples, I would imagine.
And honestly, even in Congress has gotten very much that way. And I'll bring a very current issue that's still ongoing. The current government partial shutdown, as they're calling it. To me, the Dems are willing to hurt the country, our security, air travel rather, everything all the way up and down the line, to not let something that they disagree with pass. And I use that as an example because they see voter ID and that as being such a negative thing and something they don't want. Personally, I think that's because then they won't be able to cheat as much, but that's a personal opinion. Sorry, that'll let that slip out. But it's hurting the country, and they're willing to put the results that they want ahead of the guidelines that Congress was originally given in what was supposed to be good for the country. And it really kind of breaks my heart. As you know, I'm very constitutionally oriented. And to me, they're breaking every rule possible to get what they want, not what's best for the country at this point in time.
Yeah. Well, you could also throw in the national debt on that topic, couldn't you?
Absolutely.
They're there to they're supposed to, protect revenue and our expenses, and they go right ahead and spend more money than they have revenue.
Yeah.
So,
personally, I think Doge got shut down way too fast.
Oh yeah,
they should have still been going even now. And
yes.
I had heard about the law that I believe it was Debbie mentioned in California, which shocked me. Shockley was a young man doing the independent journalism.
Yeah.
I mean, if California goes to the point where they're locking up journalists, even independent journalists, for doing what's really needed in this country, that's an extremely bad precedent. And let's just hope that doesn't pass. That would be incredibly scary for this country.
All right, Ken. That was number 4. I'm looking forward to number 5.
Very good, sir. I appreciate you letting me share my thoughts.
I think there's I don't know how many series you're going to end up giving us here, but
you mean how many within this run of Rome?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd kind of figured 5, to be honest, but we'll see where it goes. See if there's something else that I can come up with.
There's got to be more than that. There's got to be more than 5. Got to be more than 5.
Dale's just enjoying the Rome one so much, Ken. He's not going to let you go. So
I guess so. Well, it looked to me like I brought tears to your eyes there a minute ago. I saw this going on. So
yeah.
Sorry, couldn't resist. How can I tell you?
Ken, take care of yourself, and I hope you get over this cold.
Yeah, get better
Absolutely.
soon, Ken. Get better soon.
Thank you so much. I hope to talk to you both soon. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Ken. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye now.
I love that series. I think that is so pertinent to what's going on in this country. So I hope he has many more that he can develop for us. I really do.
Yeah.
Well, let's bring Debbie back on here, and Debbie's got a very interesting topic to talk to us about, all in the voter ID category. So let's find Debbie and bring her back on. Hello, Debbie. Good to see you again.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. Short while.
Yes.
So, Debbie, I know you got some websites to show us tonight, and I hope we can do you right on these things. So,
Sure.
Debbie, voter ID. So, tell us about that then.
Okay. So just a little kind of introduction here before we move into some of the websites that you have. But, historically, as America has grown, we have gotten better, including many more and all people groups into voting. We went through different amendments as we grew as a country. Slaves couldn't vote, and then women couldn't vote. And, we took care of the fact that everybody should be able to vote now, right? As you're 18 and over. Not illegals, but like if you're a citizen. And then now the big thing is, how do we preserve the integrity of each vote against any fraudulent attempts to erase our vote or to, push that down? And President Eisenhower he said the future of this republic is in the hands of the American voter. And so it's really, really important that we know that our vote is counting and that people who are not citizens, their vote is not counting. It's really not hard. Every citizen can vote and there's no cheating. Those two things. And we've talked about the SAVE Act. And here in Indiana, it's called the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, also SAVE. But anyway, so a little bit more about, in 2008, the U.S. Supreme Court stated in the case called Crawford versus Marion County Election Board, quote, flagrant examples of election fraud have been documented throughout this nation's history by respected historians and journalists that demonstrate that not only is the risk of voter fraud real, but that it could affect the outcome of a close election. Therefore, we must eliminate avenues for cheating. We have to make this fair and square. Votes matter, and they must matter.
Yeah. And Debbie, am I correct? It says in our Constitution that you have to be a citizen of this country to vote, right?
I'm pretty sure it says you have to be a citizen of this country. And it's even in a lot of the voter laws. It's interesting. We'll get into this later, but like Alaska has a law that says a person may vote in any election who is a citizen of the U.S. But they're changing that to say only a person who is a citizen of the U.S. may vote. So we've learned to wordsmith so many things.
Yeah.
And our court systems, our judges, they work on precedent now. They don't always go back to original intent. And so things get wordsmithed and wordsmithed more. And before you know it, things have changed. So it's very interesting how that works here. But in 2012, the Pew Foundation released a report that found three main things I want to report. Approximately 24 million, this is 2012, approximately 24 million or 1 in 8 voter registrations were either no longer valid or significantly inaccurate. 1 in 8.
Wow.
That's 12.5%.
And that's in 2012.
That was in 2000 when they released the report.
Yeah.
More than 1.8 million deceased people were listed as voters, so almost 2 million. And the third thing was approximately 2.75 million individuals were registered in more than one state.
Wow.
Now, that's just one finding. There's a ton of them out there that found a lot more stuff. And the point is not to go through all that, but the interesting thing is that it's been documented. It is happening. For the Supreme Court to quote that in the 2008 case tells us that it's going on, and we have to safeguard against it. And, here's the thing. If you need to cheat, then something's wrong.
Yeah.
Right? If you can't win fair and square, well, then you just need to go do something different. That's the way I feel about it. Okay, so based on that, let's go ahead and if you could pull up the website, that's the World Population Review one. Voter IDs, voter ID laws by state has the green.
Yeah, I got that one ready to go here, I think.
Okay, awesome. Okay. That's perfect. Thank you, Dale. Okay, so this right here is the voter ID laws by state in 2026. So this is the most current, accurate information we have. So everything that's green requires, all the states require a photo ID. The states in red do not require a photo ID. You can give them a non-photo ID. And the states in blue require nothing. So
this is very interesting. Let me see if I can get one. You see my arrow?
Yeah.
That's
Indiana.
Indiana.
You click on Indiana, but you have to scroll down till you find Indiana. It's listed like 7th or 8th. There you go.
Oh, I see. Oh, I didn't.
A little bit more, and it'll tell you the specifics. So Indiana says, okay, it's green, photo ID. You got it pulled up there?
Yeah.
Okay. And then it says Indiana law requires voters to present an Indiana or U.S. government issued photo ID before casting a ballot at the polls on election day. Then it specifies the ID must be either current or have expired sometime after the date of the last general election. So that's pretty good. As of 2025, student ID cards are no longer acceptable. Okay, so we're really honing in on if it's before the last election, we're not going to take it. But now let's go down to something like Arizona. So you got to scroll down a little ways till you get to the red section. Actually, red's all the way at the bottom, Dale. It's the second red one. Go back up to the individual states. There you go. You have to scroll inside the thing there. Yeah, there you go. And go down all the way to the bottom to where you see the red. Second red one. Keep going down. Red's all the way at the bottom. There you go. Okay, so Arizona. It says, in Arizona, a voter must present some form of identification at the polls. The identification does not necessarily need to include a photo. You can either present one photo ID that has your name and address, or 2 forms of non-photo ID. So again, so right there, you could literally show over the polls and not be the person that's voting. You could borrow their IDs. There's no photo.
That's true. Anything with a name and an address on it, but no photo would work, wouldn't it?
Right. So if you grab if you have their identification, 2 forms of their ID, and you have a piece of mail with your address, then you can vote and you're not that person.
Wow.
And then when you get into the blue section, if you go up a little bit, like Washington is the last blue state. It says it's a vote by mail state that offers vote centers for voters that choose to vote in person. If they chose to vote in person, they may sign a ballot declaration. Photo ID is only required if the signature doesn't match voter records. So going back to the map, you can see there's quite a few states that are blue or red on there.
But you can the blue states. I mean, you can. I mean, they're blue states, aren't they?
They're blue, and they're blue here too. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that matches. And then the green are the states now. And most of those states have, pretty good voter ID laws. You are required to show an ID.
But this map is very interesting because you can just go to a state and it says photo ID or none.
Yep.
None required in Illinois.
Right.
What a surprise.
Yeah, what a surprise. None in New York.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So that kind of gives you an idea. This is right now. I mean, we're coming up in the primary, so probably not much is going to change from this map. Maybe something might change in the general election, right? If they get something passed, but we don't have a lot of time. I think most of the primaries I can't remember when they finish, July maybe or something. There may even be some after that, but we know Indiana's is in May. So that kind of gives you an idea. And, the green states kind of go along with the true red states. Iowa, I think, is an exception. And I think North Dakota somewhat is an exception to the rule. And even Alaska. Alaska is pretty much a red state, but they don't require a photo ID. So
yeah. Huh.
Yeah. Now, those are just general. Again, if you wanted to read the specifics, you could go down underneath and just check out what each state requires. So whoever put this database together did a really good job of summing up exactly what's required in each state.
That's very interesting. Very good. Very good.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the heritage.org, the election scorecard one.
Okay.
So go to the other website.
Let's hope we do here, okay?
Yeah, you're fine. The Election Integrity Scorecard. This is the Heritage Foundation.
You get it?
Yeah. Okay. So if you would, let's go up to the upper right corner first before we get into that map. You see the little thing, the menu in the upper right, all the way up in the upper right hand corner?
Up here?
There you go. Click on that and go to the last thing that says methodology.
Okay.
This is really interesting. This is a great breakdown now. This is the 14 areas that they are ranking every state in is when it comes to best practices of voting. So there they are listed. You see voter ID, maintaining accuracy of voter registration, rules governing absentee ballots, vote tracking, all those bullet points. See those 14 things?
Yeah.
Well, in a little bit, we're going to rank those all for the states. But before we do, if you go down just a little further, it breaks every one of those 14 things down. Now, do you notice where it says Part 1, voter identification and implementation? That's the first one there, right?
Right.
Now you could open that up and click on that arrow and it will give you more details about what that looks like. So you go ahead and open that up there.
You want me to open it up? Okay.
Yeah. See each one of these and then you can close it and it talks about what did they look at when they did voter identification implementation? What were the factors that went into this overall measurement? Okay.
All right, cool.
But okay, so let's go back and go ahead and arrow up on that. But I want to show you something here. No, stay back down there on voter ID.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. The first three parts are all 20, 28, and 21 points. Those are the three big ones.
Yeah.
Everything else below is anywhere from 1 to 4 points. So the main three are voter identification implementation, accuracy of the registration lists, and then absentee ballot management. They put the most, that's almost 3/4 of the entire 2/3 of all the.
Now, the voter registration list, that has for a long time been a point of contention, right?
Absolutely. And they did a really good job. They got part 6 is verification of citizenship. Part 7, identifying voter assistants. This is really important. Like, who's at the polls? And what kind of people are they? And where are they at? What parts of the process? You got vote counting practices in part 8. 9 is election litigation procedures. When there's issues, how are they get handled? Part 10, restriction of same-day registration. So they thought of a lot of things on this. And then the very last one, part 14, is ranked choice voting. They only gave it 1 point because I don't think very many states do that, but they just said it's a really bad thing to do. So
I've heard that was mentioned. I remember hearing about that being mentioned, being considered. Was New York considering that, or?
I am not sure, to be honest with you. We're going to go look at the states here in just a second, okay?
Right.
But I wanted everybody to see those. And then let's go back all the way up to the top right corner where the menu button is.
Yeah.
And go down to the third one that says state scorecards. And that's going to bring that map up again. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. You scroll up just one more little thing there so we can see the bottom of it. Yeah, right in there. Good. Okay, down one more. Just so you can, other way. Okay. Yeah, I wanted you to get Alaska and Hawaii in there. Good job. That's perfect. Okay, so there are 51 squares here because we're also including Washington, D.C. Okay, so if you look next to the left of MD or Maryland is D.C. So that's why there's 51. And you can see the states that ranked in the top 10 states with all 14 of those areas added up are in the dark green. Now, if you click on Indiana.
There's Indiana. We're in the green, aren't we?
And we're ranked 7th. So we're doing the 7th best job in the nation of voter integrity.
Cool.
Yeah.
Missouri.
And then the light green are ranked 11th through 20th.
Yeah.
The yellow, 21 through 30. The orange, 31 through 40. And then the red are the 41 through 50. And what you're going to find out is those are your blue states again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, who is number 1 then? Arkansas.
Yeah. So
Arkansas.
It's Arkansas. Yeah. So let's click on Arkansas. Go ahead and click on it this time.
Oh,
and then it shows you how they scored. Okay. So 20 out of 20, they got a 91 on 100. They were the best. Very good voter registration list, pretty good absentee ballot. Most of those were pretty good. They only lost 9 points total. Okay. So that's how you can see all 14 areas with one state.
Yeah.
Now,
who put this up? Is this the Heritage Foundation that put this?
Yeah, this is the Heritage Foundation. Okay. So let's arrow back. Let's go back to the map again.
All right.
Now, so what you can see here is that it's really, the reds are the red blocks are typically the blue states, and the green and light green tend to be more of your red states, right? Yeah. And then the yellow and the orange are the ones that are kind of in between. Nothing surprising there, right? All right.
Right.
Let's go up there now. We're going to go back up to the top, and we're going to do, hang on just a second here. I'm looking for, yeah. So let's do the second one down that says all state scores. Click that one.
Okay, are we on a different website now? A different
Menu,
Nope.
menu, Joe.
Nope.
The menu.
Just go back up to your menu on the upper right corner.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Second one down says all state scores. Now this
Yep.
one's cool. You can scroll down tad, but you can see it ranks them.
Oh,
This
okay.
is your ranking. You can see, but you can't see all 14 because you have to scroll to the right. You can only see the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, all right.
Actually, you got more than 6, don't you? You got 7 on yours.
Okay.
But anyway, so this is how they fall. So you can see Indiana is 7th on the list there.
No, we're tied
And
with Oklahoma, huh? Okay.
it looks that way.
Yeah.
It looks that way. I'm not sure why that. Yeah. So yes, a tie. So you can scroll down within this thing too. If you get in the table, you can scroll all the way down to the red to see the very last state. The worst of all is Hawaii. They've got a lot of zeros in Hawaii on their rankings with the points.
Okay, but before we go down there, I just noticed here the voter registration list for Indiana.
Mhm.
That's where we lost points. That's where that's our lowest score here of the top 10.
Oh, 18 out of 28, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Missouri is the same way, but I know in Indiana, I know that's been a point of contention still.
Yeah.
The voter registration list. Okay.
Sure.
And you want me to go down further to the
Yeah, I just thought you might want to look at some of the ones on the bottom, like Illinois. You can see 3 out of 20 with voter ID.
Wow.
Their accuracy was a little better than ours, 22 out of 28.
Yeah.
But then absentee ballot, only 12 out of 21. And then vote harvesting, they only got 1 of 4. They got a 0 verification of citizenship, 0, because they don't require any ID. So I mean, you can't even get on an airplane. And so I don't understand why you wouldn't want somebody. I mean, anybody else who goes anywhere has to use an ID. So the excuse that people can't get IDs, I really find that hard to believe.
Yeah.
Right. If you go to the bank, right. So even your elderly have to go to the bank. I have to take my mom to the bank. She has to have her ID. She's 87, but she's got to have it with her to show that she's who she says she is, right?
Yep.
So they did a really good job here of scoring the states as far as voter integrity laws. Now, I want to stop here for just a second. States that have signed into law their own version of the SAVE Act, there are 4 of them. Florida, Mississippi, South Dakota, and Utah. All 4 of them have signed into law their own version of the SAVE Act. So that's 4 out of 51. Now, Indiana has its own version, but it hasn't passed all the way, right? It's still in process. Now, there are some other states that are adding language to prohibit non-citizens from voting. Do you remember when I read, and I said that in Alaska, they're changing, quote, a person may vote at any election who is a citizen of the U.S.?
Mm-hmm.
They're changing that to be, quote, only a person who is a citizen may vote. Okay. And so several of those states are adding that language in Alaska, Arkansas, Kansas, South Dakota, and West Virginia. So they're making efforts in that area also so that only citizens can vote. And Michigan and Arizona have proposals for that, which is we're heading in the right direction. I was glad to see Michigan and Arizona in there.
Okay.
So that's kind of what that looks like. Any questions on this? Now, you could, like I said, you could look up what would be another state you'd want to look at in here.
Well, you mentioned Florida, and I just noticed, they're ranked number 5, so they're very strong too.
Yeah, and I think you can actually click on the word Florida, and it'll take you to their own scorecard again. So you can get back to that scorecard if you click on the word Florida. Yeah, it takes you to the scorecard. So you can see everything all in one page without having to scroll to the right or to the left.
Very good. Okay. I know, Debbie, you got another website you want to look at here, right?
I do. Yeah. So the last one I wanted to look at it's the 2026 federal election interference risk map. They're tracking the Department of Justice lawsuits, FBI actions, Project 2025 implementation and competitive House races based on, then this is also April 2026. So this has just been updated. This is an ongoing updated website. See if you can get that one up there.
Is this the, oh yeah, the risk.
Yeah. I thought this was interesting. So basically, this is how high of a risk is there for election interference in your state, federal election interference. So you can see the ones that are the deep red are the most critical risk level. So what do you notice about those states? Some of them are red states, but some are blue states, but some are red states. So they have some ongoing litigation. They've been sued. Other things going on. So you see all the ones in gray, they all complied with the Department of Justice.
Well, and there's Indiana.
Yeah, we're a good state. We like to comply, don't we?
Yeah, we sure do.
Yeah, so there's no issues going on there. And then in the dark, deep blue, it's almost like a navy blue, almost a light black. There's no major action reported on any of those. So they're all clean. When you start getting to the light colored orange, that's where there's like a moderate risk level because they're having issues with these states complying. And then the deeper orange is elevated. And then the light red is high. And then really, I think Georgia is the only state that's at the critical level. And if you click on that, Dale, look what it says off to the right. It reads it. FBI raided Fulton County election offices on January 28, 2026.
Oh, yeah.
Seizing 700 plus boxes of ballots. Tulsi Gabbard was on hand. So it kind of explains, whoever put this together, it took them a lot of time to report exactly what was happening.
Interesting.
So we really can, the information is out there. We really can find it and track it. To see, what has been going on, what is still ongoing, who's being sued, or we're waiting for things like that. And so this was really the last website that I just wanted to bring attention to. And then if you go down to the bottom, if you keep scrolling down, see where it says courts fighting back. So it says Illinois, all right, is Minnesota is a motion to dismiss hearing. So it kind of tells you where each one of them is at right now. And it goes all the way to the bottom. It's not bad as far as, it really tells you a lot, some of the cases. And then at the very, very bottom, if you keep scrolling down, it has latest developments, 17 new developments. Can you go down any further? There you go.
Oh.
Yeah. Senate enters the recess with a SABAC stall. Democracy Forward sues the DOJ. So they're really filling this thing up with facts.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
So, so back to the SAVE Act, we've got four states who have passed their own version, and I don't know how many more will get that saved before the general election. Honestly, I don't know.
All right, Debbie.
That's kind of all the data right there. And I hope that helps people to go out and maybe we just review those websites again. The first one was worldpopulationreview.com on state rankings of the voter ID laws. The second one was the Heritage Foundation. It's electionscorecard.heritage.org. And then the last one was the elections risk map. .org.
Right. Excellent, Debbie. Excellent. Very good. We can. This tells me that there is a lot going on. There's a lot that has gone on.
Yes, it is. And we're not hearing about all of it, but it is going on.
Yeah. And I think it truly is it's a state level thing here, and it's gonna take time, but keep plugging away at it. Keep plugging away.
The timeline at the bottom on the latest developments is really good. And you can even scroll down to all the 49. There's actually 49 updates. You could see them all if you click the top right corner of that thing. So, yeah.
All right. All right, Debbie, out of time. Thank you very, very much. Excellent job. Excellent job.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, Debbie. Have a good evening.
You
See
too.
you,
Bye.
Deb. Bye.
Boy, was that good or what, Ken? Man, that
Yeah,
was.
those are some excellent websites. Then again, as she said, people, you don't hear about it in the media. Nobody's covering it. But boy, if you do just a little bit of research, you can kind of get a good grasp of what's going on.
No kidding. No kidding. Very good. Boy, Debbie, both Ken and Debbie, great presentations tonight.
Great
very good.
reports tonight.
Very
Great
good.
reports. Yeah.
Well, Ken, let's start wrapping up here. And as usual, we have our weekly Dave's Daily Dose.
Been waiting for that one. Yep.
David Punt up in Minnesota. So let's see what's on his mind this week. All
Sounds
right.
good.
We're about to hear lots more from the Iranians we're trying to destroy. That would be the Iranians who threw out the Shah 50 years ago and have since kept an iron fist on roughly half the population. At least that's half the story. What we heard today is that they shot down one of our planes. They say an expensive F-35. We say a less expensive, older F-15E. AP now says that one of the pilots has been rescued and the search continues for the other one. Sounds like a real war. This is Dave's Daily Dose on BrokenRoadRadio.com. I'm David Allen Punt, and it sounds like it's time for patriots to come together, regardless of their political party. Yes, I know there's a midterm coming up, and yes, I know Democrats are convinced that the only way they'll get back into any political running is to continue to say bad things about Donald Trump and his war. But perhaps it's time to get a civil tongue in our heads. We've got real soldiers and airmen in harm's way, and they need our support. Enough of the thank you for your service lip service. Our troops need us. We've heard now from Iranian President Pezeshkian, which is something. Since the beginning, when the Ayatollah was killed in an Israeli airstrike and his kid Ayatollah Jr. was badly wounded, we've heard nothing. Maybe the Islamic Revolutionary Guard has been too busy running for cover. President Pezeshkian has sent a message to the American people on X that they haven't done anything wrong, that they're a peaceful people just trying to make their way in the world, that every time he said death to America, he meant it in a nicer way, kind of a humorous tone. Likewise, death to Israel. Nice, gentle, non-threatening. We've all heard stories about the ruling class keeping a tight lid on the folks in the non-ruling class. We've heard the internet service has been blocked, and if anybody in the non-ruling class gets a hold of a Starlink or some way to get messages out, they're hunted down. And someday we'll know if those stories are true. Meanwhile, we're dealing with people who don't tell the truth, so we have to wait and see. We have enough evidence of evil doing over the last 47 years. The nuclear weapon desires, the assassinations of Olympic-style wrestlers, women soccer players who were out of the country but who quickly cleaned up their act and went back. Iran's support of Hamas and Hezbollah and Houthis. Like the president said, this is something that has to be done and has to be finished. Hang on, folks. It will get bumpy. I'm David Allen Punt.
It will get bumpy.
Yeah, gonna get kind of bumpy. You can tell that's about a week old. A lot's transpired since he did that one. So, but always good to hear from him. Always good to hear. Okay. Well, Ken, let's wrap things up here this evening, and I want to let everyone know that if you want to find us, the easiest way is to find our YouTube channel, American Patriots for Convention of States. And Ken, I think you're posting a link for that, right?
I am posting that in the chat room. Yes, I am. Mhm.
American Patriots for a Convention of States. The easiest way is to find our YouTube channel, and there you'll find our live broadcast as well as past broadcasts. So that's the best way to find us on the internet. Might also mention that if you have any questions or comments about tonight's broadcast, feel free to drop us an email at raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. Well, Ken, anybody, any comments or questions from viewers this evening?
No, been kind of a quiet night tonight. Everybody just sitting back, absorbing all the good content that we put out tonight.
Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. I'll take your word for it.
I mean, that means they were all in agreement, Dale. So
is that right? All right.
I believe so. Yeah.
Well, I think we had a good show tonight. I hope everyone enjoyed it. And once again, thank you all for viewing, and thank you all for supporting us. We're trying to, as we stated early on, we're trying to save the country with Convention of States. So with that, let's let Maringo Mike close us out here, Ken, and that'll be a wrap for tonight.
Sounds good.
Marengo Mike here with a reminder of the importance of this year as we continue to grow the grassroots army of volunteers and the mission of using the Constitution to fix the ills of our government. Use the QR code if you haven't signed the petition, and consider using your talents to become an active volunteer. Thank you, and God bless.